Aloha, you're listening to the NBA Big Board on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm with Rafael Barlowe. The All-Star game just happened. We had the young rising stars. We're going to debate the top 25 players in the NBA under 25. Here we go. All right, I'm back with Rafael Barlowe, Director of Scouting at NBABigBoard.com now, and it already has a couple of awesome columns up about Jabari Smith being the number one pick in the draft, doing some video breakdown of one of the draft's biggest mysteries, Shaedon Sharpe out of Kentucky, which a lot of our readers have been asking, man, I just don't know where to put him on board because I haven't seen him play. Rafael's going to do some work showing us exactly what he looks like on the court. Unfortunately, it's not at Kentucky. But in high school as well. But we're gonna not talk about the 2022 NBA draft today. Maybe we will a little bit at the end, but that's not going to be our primary focus. We want to look at the players that are actually in the league right now. We just had the Rising Stars competition. We got to see the best NBA rookies and sophomores, but we want to talk about the players that we think are the best players in the NBA under the age of 25. You can actually go read my list over at NBABigBoard.com. Subscribe today. Check all of that out as well. But Rafael we're going to debate some of this stuff because a lot of these rankings are very subjective. Some of these guys are really close. I tried to use a combination of three different analytics models, LeBron, Darko, and Raptor, as well as talking to NBA general managers about how they would rank him. Rafael is a scout, watches a lot of the NBA as well. That's another sort of aspect to look at. And so we're going to dive right into this, Rafael, right at the start. And we'll do the opposite of the columns that sort of counted down from 25 to 1. We're going to start right at the top because it seemed to me the analytics say that this is actually razor thin close between Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks and Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics, with Ja Morant of Memphis gaining ground quickly, but at least according to the advanced analytics, he's not at their level yet. Doncic was number one on my last board. I kept him number one on this board. I'm curious, who would be your number one guy as the best player in the NBA under the age of 25?
Well, I live in Dallas, and I've kind of gained a reputation as a guy who knows the international games. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I'm going Luka. So I agree there. I think the difference between Luka and Tatum is that Luka is a much better playmaker. I think you can get the same scoring from Luka or Tatum, but I think the difference is the playmaking. And Luka can make everyone around him better. If there was a knock that I did have on Tatum was I thought that he needed to improve as a playmaker, which he's done over the last few weeks. The Celtics seemed like they kind of figured it out once Brown and Tatum started moving the ball a little bit more, but I'm going Luka here.
One of the interesting things about one of the reasons from the analytics standpoint that it's so razor thin is that Luka came into the season out of shape and not putting up Luka-esque numbers for the first month of the season. Then he injures his ankle. He uses that 3 weeks that he's off to get in better condition. I still don't think that anybody's going to argue that Luka's in elite NBA physical condition right now, but he's certainly better than what he showed up at camp with. And he has been an absolute monster. And so I'm gonna show you these numbers right now because they're pretty amazing. In February, this is just in the 9 games that Luka's played in February. 36.3 points a game, 10.6 rebounds a game, 9.4 assists a game, shooting 43.4% from three. If he keeps that up, this is the best we've ever seen Luka Doncic, and he's a legit MVP candidate.
Yeah, I mean, if he can play the Clippers every night, then he would definitely be the MVP candidate. So, I mean, he, for whatever reasons, torches the Clippers. And then the one game that I was actually at the game where he scored most of his points in the fourth quarter. It was interesting that Tyronn Lue decided to have I can't think it slips my the big guard him the entire game, which usually Luka hunts out those mismatches. But I don't know. The thing about Luka being out of shape, I'd say he's in better shape than the average NBA player, simply because can the average NBA player handle his workload and being the main name on the scouting report every night? And he's been able to do that, quote unquote, out of shape, and he was still putting up 25, 26, 27 points per game. So I think that also his body type, he'll never look like he's in great shape, but I think it's a little bit overrated. That's just my opinion.
Okay. So you got Doncic 1. Would you put Jayson Tatum 2, or is Ja Morant, or maybe somebody else? Maybe there's another wild card in here for Rafael at number 2 for top player under the age of 25 currently in the NBA.
Maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but I'm going with Ja at number 2. I think he's just an engine. But then again, you can say that the Grizzlies were successful without him. I mean, they had a nice string of games or a nice string of W's when he was out with the injured ankle. But I guess maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment. I would go with Ja, number 2 right now.
He's number 3 on my list, and obviously a guy who is maybe the most electric player in the NBA to watch right now. Like if there's a must-see where I want to just tune in to watch a player come in and do something special every night. To me, it's 2 guys. It's Ja or Steph Curry are the guys that on any given night, they can do so many incredible things on the court. And it's interesting because they're totally different basketball players. But his high wire act above the rim is incredible. But I actually think Ja doesn't get enough respect in the NBA for not just being this incredible, explosive top tier athlete, but also a guy who really sees and understands and feels the game. And I think that's sometimes a misnomer about Ja is when you see someone with the athletic tools that he has, you want to say that his success is primarily predicated on his athleticism, which is certainly a big part of his game. But to me, one of the things that's impressed me is how he's continued to evolve as a playmaker, as a point guard, and as someone who I just actually think has a great feel for the game, the same way that Tatum does, and the same way that Luka Doncic does.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought he was a special passer coming out of Murray State, and it's all kind of come together for him. I mean, he's definitely someone that is an engine, and that's when I make these lists. I wonder, like, all right, is this particular player, are they an engine? Can they carry a franchise? And that's exactly what Ja is doing. I mean, Memphis is way ahead of their rebuilding schedule, and a lot of it is because he's been so dynamic. I mean, the expectations were high for him as the number 2 pick, but I honestly feel like he's exceeded expectations.
Well, there you have it. Analytics aren't quite there yet, but some of the part of that is because of the analytics that I use. They're taking into previous seasons as well, where actually Ja for the first couple of years was not by any stretch an analytics darling. That's really been a big turnaround this year. But if you're just looking at this season, between the guys that are under 25, and if we could give an MVP award out to a player that's under 25, I think Ja wins it this year. I would say he's the MVP of the under 25s.
Yeah, I mean, definitely because of the Grizzlies' success. But then again, someone who may vote in favor of Tatum will say that if Tatum missed as many games as Ja did, the Celtics wouldn't be as good. And Memphis was pretty successful without Ja. But I'm still going with Ja Morant.
Okay. Does that mean you got Tatum at 3?
Yes. Yes, I have Tatum at number 3.
All right. So let's talk about 4 here. You've got Trae Young, who's a possibility, a guy who's, again, putting up huge numbers in Atlanta this year. You've got Zion Williamson, who was drafted ahead of Ja, who, when he's healthy, for sure looks like he's a top 3 player, but has only played 85 games in the NBA, has missed the entire season. Lots of concerns about Zion right now. You've got a couple of guys that made all-star teams like LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and you have this year's rookies. You've got Evan Mobley, you've got Cade Cunningham, you got Scottie Barnes. Those are all guys that I think are in the mix next. Who's your 4th best player, top 25 under 25?
I honestly did not think that making this list would be as controversial as it is. I thought it was going to be easy, but there's some guys that are left out that, you can make a case for. And then it's hard to say that, at least in my opinion, that Trae Young is behind Evan Mobley.
Okay.
I mean, you look at the success Atlanta had last year. Maybe it was just an outlier season, but Trae Young is putting up some really ridiculous numbers. I know that defensively there's some issues there, and again, maybe last year was an outlier year for the Hawks, but I don't think Mobley's done enough to put him over Trae Young right now.
Okay, all right, that's a fair point. But I want to dig back at you a little bit on this to say that there are some defensive issues with Trae Young when both when Raptor, LeBron, and Darko, the three analytics tools that are probably the most respected in the NBA, they rarely agree on anything, but they unanimously agree that he is the worst defender in the NBA. Not that he has some defensive issues, but he's the worst defender in the NBA. And on two of those metrics, it's not even close. There's not even another player that's next to him. Certainly that fits the eye test most of the time when you're watching Trae Young as well. And so how do you have a guy, and offensively, he's great. By the way, they have him ranked anywhere but like second or third in the NBA offensively. He is a player that is on extreme ends here. But how do you justify taking a 6'1" guard who not only has defensive issues, but let's just take it for real for a minute that he's the worst defender in the NBA over a 7-footer who's incredibly agile agile mobility, 3 years younger than Trae Young, is ranked by one of those, LeBron, as already the best defender in the NBA. I know that seems like an outlier, and others have Rudy and different things in there, but it's the analytics are picking up his defensive powers. And whatever you want to say about Mobley, he isn't ever going to be the worst offensive player in the NBA. In fact, I think he's going to be a highly plus defender in the NBA. If you were drafting today, Rafael, and you're building your team, you telling me you would take Trae Young over Evan Mobley?
I need to sell tickets and jerseys and get butts in the seats.
No, you don't. You need to win. You need to win basketball games.
Well, I mean, Trey has went to the Eastern Conference Finals. If he's gone to the Eastern Conference Finals before his rookie deal expired. That's pretty impressive. And this is coming from a guy that is not the biggest Trae Young fan. Again, it may have been an outlier year. Maybe if Ben Simmons makes a layup, then it's totally different. But something about Trae Young in big games and his mental toughness and the confidence that he plays with, I think that I don't know if Evan Mobley is going to be able to duplicate that success in the same amount of time. But he has made a huge impact as a rookie. Can't deny that.
I mean, he's done something as a rookie that is really unheard of. Rookies can put up good counting stats. We know that in the past, but they rarely actually help their teams win basketball games. It's one of the things analytics show over and over again. No matter, even if your rookie scoring 20 points a night, he's probably going to be a minus when it gets to plus minus on the floor. He's not going to help you win basketball games. Evan Mobley. Now there's two other all-stars on this team, and Jared Allen and Darius Garland, both who make the top 25 under 25 list as well. But if you're looking at what any of these guys did at the age of 20, Mobley is ahead of all of them. And other than maybe Doncic, who came into the league on fire right away. I think he's the guy, other than Doncic, that I think down the road, and again, maybe this is me being a bit hyperbolic, who could be on that list, arguably the best player in the NBA someday. I think Doncic could reach that at some point in his career where people just say unanimously, hey, Luka Doncic is the best player in the NBA. I'm not saying he is now, but I'm saying down the road. I see Mobley. That's where the ceiling that I see Mobley. I certainly don't see that in Trae Young. And I'm not even sure that I totally see that with Jayson Tatum.
I mean, it's a fair assessment. I just, you look at Young's numbers and you look at, again, conference finals.
3 years age difference too, though.
Yeah. That's true. I will still go with Trae Young.
Okay. So we don't agree. We don't agree on that one. But then, spoiler alert, I have Trae Young fifth. So it's not like I'm dropping him that much further. Who's the fifth guy on your board?
I would go with Mobley over Zion. Which if you would have asked me that question a year ago, or even 2 years ago, it would have sounded crazy. I don't know what's going on with Zion. The signs aren't looking good. The health issues, then just the way he's handling this doesn't really look good. And then, but I've always felt that Zion is going to be hard to build around, simply because I think that he's best suited to be a 5, but you have to find like the perfect complementary 4 or 5 to play alongside with him. You need like a rim protector that can space the floor, and how many of those guys are available. And Zion has some defensive issues also. Sometimes I think it's just, I mean, I think at least with Trey, you know, that there's some things that he can't help. Some of it is effort, but I feel like Zion is not defending when he's playing. He's not defending like he did at Duke, or really rebounding. It just seems like, you talk about Doncic's conditioning. I think Zion's is a little more, because a little bigger of an issue, because he doesn't put forth any effort on the defensive end, in my opinion.
Yeah, Zion was by far the hardest guy for me to place. I ended up having him 6th on my board. But if somebody wanted to argue, no, he's 10th or even 15th, I understand the argument, because he's played 85 games in 3 years. There's no clear timetable when he's coming back. Now there's questions about whether he wants out of New Orleans, whether he's committed to his own conditioning and his own game as well as to his team. I mean, those are all serious issues. He's also 21 years old, and if he does figure it out, he's going to move right back into the top 3, because you don't see the combination of size, explosive athleticism, and skills that Zion brings to the table. So if he ever gets motivated, slims down, can stay healthy, and what have you, he's got a chance to be an MVP in the NBA someday. That's his upside. But those ifs just are looming bigger and bigger and bigger right now, and it's a very tough situation that New Orleans in.
Yeah. Here's a question for you.
Okay,
is Zion the same athlete, or last year when he put up, I think, like 28 points a game? Was he the same athlete last year that he was at Duke? And when I watched the difference, I don't see the same explosiveness that we saw at Duke. Is the extra weight adding, maybe a little decline? I mean, he's still a top tier athlete, but I don't see the same pop as I saw 3 years ago.
I think that's fair. If we saw Zion in elite NBA conditioning, like if he put in the work that LeBron puts in, for example, every year off season, getting his body in the best possible shape that he could be in, I think we see a guy who could score 30 points a night in the NBA. Like, he was doing 28 points, and I still think he was probably 15 to 20 pounds overweight. Right. Yeah. And then that was in his second year in the league. So, but those are ifs, because those are things that are under his control. Injuries aren't always under your control, but when you're thinking about the foot and the stress and the weight that you're putting on that, and just the weight that you're putting on your frame every night, some of that is under Zion's control. And if he's going to stay healthy in the NBA, I think it's unanimous that he needs to get in a much better conditioning, off-season conditioning program, what have you. And if he's not going to do it, that this injury type of issue could be reoccurring.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about our sponsor, Truebill. Do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. I use Truebill. It also alerts you to large purchases, alerts you to anything that's sort of going on with your account. I think it's an awesome app. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions. I use that recently as well, so you don't have to. Don't fall for the subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now, Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, we're going to move a little bit further down the board to a couple of NBA sophomores. One who made an all-star team, one who didn't. LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards. And these guys went 1-3 in the draft. They've been lumped pretty close together. LaMelo wins Rookie of the Year. LaMelo is the first guy to do the All-Star game. Actually, the analytics who did not like Anthony Edwards as a rookie and did like LaMelo as a rookie have now got them essentially neck and neck. They're almost putting up across the board analytics numbers that are very similar to each other right now. Where do you rank LaMelo and Anthony Edwards on your top 25 under 25?
I am going with Ant over LaMelo.
Okay.
I think Anthony Edwards is going to be dynamite. And yes, you can say he has better teammates. And the Wolves are a playoff team. I mean, when's the last time we've seen the Wolves in the playoff? Other than 3 years ago? But other than that, it's like their second time since
They're like a
2005.
play-in. They're in a play-in playoff team, right? Like,
which is, I mean,
which also might be Charlotte, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. And then the East is actually tougher than the West this year.
Yep.
I'm still going with Anthony Edwards. I think that he is going to be a 25 point per game scorer for the next 8 to 10 years. I mean, LaMelo is going to be really good. LaMelo's already proven his impact, but I think I'm going to go with Anthony Edwards here.
Okay, this is interesting because you said in the Doncic Tatum comparison that what gave Doncic the end was the playmaking, because both can really score the ball. And LaMelo certainly, while I'm not sure that we'll see him be a 25 point a night scorer, is certainly much better when it comes to playmaking. I think that's actually the number one thing that LaMelo hangs his hat on. So is it just the scoring and the combination of the sort of explosive elite athleticism that Anthony Edwards brings to the table that you think sort of outshines the fact that LaMelo is a good scorer? He's probably a better shooter, and he's definitely one of the top young playmakers in the NBA, where Edwards is. And is that why he gets the edge?
I give him the edge because I think he can be your closer. I think in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, I think you can give the ball to Anthony Edwards and say, go get me a bucket. And I think that the closing ability is the difference, at least for me right now.
Okay. So where did you have them ultimately in your top 25?
I had LaMelo. Let's see where we at. I had LaMelo 8 and Ant 7.
Okay. And I just had them reverse. So Rafael and I are close on a lot of these things. I had LaMelo 7, Ant 8. All right, I'm going to talk about my 9th and 10th guys. These may not be your 9th and 10th guys, so you can tell us where you placed them or whatever. If there was another area of controversy on the list, it's that Detroit fans believe that probably they're upset that Cade wasn't number 1 on the list, like screw Doncic and Jayson Tatum, whatever. But maybe more reasonable fans say he should have been the number 1 rookie. I have Evan Mobley clearly ahead of him, as you do as well. I have him 4. Rafael has him 5. But then when it got to Scottie and Cade, I'm high on both of them. I think both of them make multiple all-star teams someday. They both end up making my top 10 at 9 and 10. I picked Scottie Barnes 9th, Cade Cunningham 10th. And I did it in part, again, based off of where I see the two-way play and versatility of Scottie coming in. Can play all 5 positions, is already doing that in the NBA, as opposed to where I see Cade being a better shooter, better scorer, and probably, it looks like early on, maybe even a better distributor than Scottie, but doesn't have that athletic size, versatility, 5 positions. You can build any sort of team around Scottie that you want because he can kind of fit in wherever you want. I have him with an edge over Cade. I'm curious, would you rank them the same way, or would you have Cade over Scottie? And would either of these guys make your top 10?
I'd have Cade over Scottie, but I think Scottie is going to have the much more successful career as far as team success. He's in a great situation in Toronto with other good young players around him. He has an excellent general manager. So I think Cade may put up bigger numbers, but I think Scottie's going to contribute more towards winning. And it's odd that we're talking about 2 guys that were on the same high school team. Like, how crazy is that? And I think Day'Ron Sharpe was on that team too, if I'm not mistaken. It's crazy that this high school team has 2 of the top 10 players. And then, of course, I guess I'll play devil's advocate because the Detroit fans and Cade Cunningham fans think you have something against him anyway. So,
yeah, I only ranked him number 1 on my big board coming to the draft.
Had him pointed out a flaw. You pointed out a flaw, and it's like you had a concern, and it's just like that's all they heard.
Yeah, so. I just pointed out, that we should be looking at Evan Mobley and Scottie Barnes, and frankly, because this guy is a guy that I kind of whiffed on, Jalen Green, in there. I'm sure Detroit fans are right to say, well, good thing we didn't take Jalen Green, and maybe we'll talk about Jalen Green in a little bit, but yeah, I think this is interesting that I actually think it does Cade a favor to try to more accurately say, okay, let's quit comparing him to Luka Doncic, because I don't think he's going to have the career of Luka Doncic. I'm not sure anybody's going to have the career of Luka Doncic. Mm-hmm. But let's also not be the minute that he shoots 1 for 10 from 3, say Cade was a bust and they should have taken Mobley or Scottie Barnes. I sit somewhere in the middle, which is that he's going to make multiple all-star teams. This was a great pick for Detroit. He's going to be a big piece of the rebuilding. But because of their size and versatility and athletic abilities, I'm a little bit higher on Evan Mobley and Scottie Barnes than I am Cade Cunningham right now. But all of them, to me, are top 10 players in the top 25 right now. And that is, to me, not an insult to Cade Cunningham to say he's one of the 10 best under 25 players in the NBA right now, because there's a bunch of names that he passed on. We've got Bam, we've got Shai Gilgeous Alexander, right? These guys, Darius Garland, who made an all-star team, Jared Allen, who made an all-star team, DeAndre Ayton, who was a number 1 pick in the draft. I mean, these guys are also under the age of 25, and I have Cade ahead of all of them. So please, Detroit fans, I don't have anything against Detroit. I really, really like Cade Cunningham. I think he's going to be a really, really great player. But Scottie Barnes, to me, gets the slight edge.
And both, Mobley and Barnes are going to play playoff basketball this year, while Detroit is going to be competing for the number 1 pick. Not saying that is all Cade's fault, but
no, because Cade's playing with Killian Hayes. So no, I'm not going to blame all of that on Cade. And it will be interesting long term just to see how this all plays out. But I love this. I love that there's going to be a debate now between them. To me, the Evan Mobley thing is clear. That his ceiling, if he hits it, I'm not sure how Cade can catch it, just because of the lack of size and versatility. But there is a question of if, and Cade has that ability, like I said, to make multiple all-star teams. Okay, let's talk about our longtime sponsor, Built Bar. And Rafael, I got a surprise for you.
Uh-oh.
We're always talking about Built Bars, but have you tried the Puffs, the Built Bar Puffs? Have you tried those yet?
I have not tried them yet, but I am expecting some soon because I had my locked on anniversary, and I'm sure that's in the package.
Yeah, man. If you're missing out on one of the Built Bar's best tasting bars, Puffs are for the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered with 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamony, churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. And all Built Bars are covered with 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included, 100% real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. Typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to built.com, scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, dozens of net carbs, mint brownie, coconut almond. New for this month, white chocolate, cookies and cream. They are delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It'll be delicious, and it'll be good for you. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it taste delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay. We're going to wrap it up here by talking about some of the guys that didn't make the list and maybe who should have. Maybe they didn't make my list, but maybe they made Raphael's. We're going to go through some of that. And so I'm going to give you a list of guys, Raphael, that did not make my top 25, even though they were under 25. And some of these people are a little bit salty about right now. Again, in none of these cases did the analytics support them making the 25, but there's other considerations that are here. And so let's look. RJ Barrett of the Knicks did not make the list. OG Anunoby of the Raptors did not make the list. Desmond Bane, who's having an incredible sophomore season for Memphis Grizzlies, doesn't make the list. Tyrese Maxey, who the Sixers held out on a Ben Simmons trade for because they didn't want to trade him, did not make the list. De'Aaron Fox did make the list last time, slides off the list this time in part because he's had a tough year in Sacramento. And rookies, Franz Wagner, who is in the top 5 rookies in the NBA right now, doesn't make the list. Jalen Green, who was number 5 on my list preseason when I was just projecting rookies out, falls all the way out of the top 25. Jalen Suggs of the Orlando Magic doesn't make the list. Of those guys, who do you think is most deserving to make the top 25? Or did any of these guys or multiple of these guys make your list?
There's someone that I feel like should have made the list that did not make the list at all and hasn't been mentioned.
Oh, wow.
Anfernee
Okay.
Simons.
Oh, my goodness.
He's only 22, and he's putting up, I guess you can say this. It's a small sample size because it's been pretty much this season, but he's putting up 23, 24 points per game, and he's actually hurting the Blazers' chances of getting a higher draft pick to the point where now I just saw today that Nurkic is going to miss a month with plantar fasciitis. Well, it's probably because they were winning. I think they beat Memphis. They want to get a higher pick, but Anfernee Simons has been, you could say that he's been just as good this season as some of the guys that are ranked ahead of him in the time that he's played. And I think Portland is going to really build around him. And I see Simons as someone that's going to average about 23, 24, and 5 assists per game for the next few years. So he was the biggest omission on the list, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the analytics obviously not high on him, in part because they're factoring in multiple seasons of where he doesn't have that huge role in Portland or whatever. But you're right. If we were just sort of taking from the trade deadline where did he end up on your list?
I have him over Gilgeous-Alexander.
Oh, wow.
I think if they were playing, if they had the same exact situation, then I think Simons would put up the same numbers.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe anybody I'm a little biased. I'm a Blazers fan. Maybe I'm a little biased, but he's put up. I think the numbers support that he's put up really good numbers this year.
Strong argument. Strong argument. Anybody else that was glaring?
No, I think it's kind of tough that Jalen Green isn't on this list. A few months ago, we would have probably guessed for him to be a top 10 player, at least in that range. Now I know the numbers aren't good, but Anthony Edwards I think he was one of the worst players in the NBA last year, according to one of I think it was maybe the Raptor metrics. So it's way too early to throw in the towel on Jalen Green, but I do, and we talked about it in the last episode. It is very interesting that in a redraft today, maybe Kuminga goes higher than him.
Yeah,
you have Kuminga in your top 25,
and Josh Giddey, who is 8th in the NBA in triple doubles this year as a 20-year-old. Were guys that got more votes from general managers than Jalen Green did, and interesting. Jalen Green was. I went back and forth. Even sometimes having Jalen Green in like the teens on this, because I still believe that combination of athleticism, his drive, his ability to score the basketball, I think his shot's going to come around. I think ultimately he's going to be in a better situation in Houston, that they're going to get better players around him. Probably mean that this of anybody on the list that it's going to look dumb in a couple of years, like where was Jalen Green on this list? And, one counter point to saying, okay, look, Raptor has him as the worst player in the NBA right now, like dead last, worst player in the NBA. Though I will point out that Trae Young is worse than him on defense, that he's number 2, second worst defender in the NBA, but Trae Young, they say, is actually worse. But Raptor said that several years ago about Darius Garland. Worst player in the league after his rookie season. He's an all-star this year. And so, that ability to grow and figure things out. And Garland's a great sort of example of a guy who it takes sometimes young guards a little longer. And it seems like Raptors hardest on those young guards, and the analytics are hardest on those young guards when they're young. It takes sometimes them a while to figure this out. Jalen Green's upside to me was the guy that I was just like, man, there was nothing analytically or even in talking to the GMs and scouts I talked to that could really justify me putting him there. But I still believe that he's got a chance to end up at some point in his career before the age of 25 in the top 10, in the top 25 under 25.
Now, here's something to think about with Darius Garland compared to Jalen Green as far as being at the bottom of the Raptor list. Garland played maybe 7 games. He didn't even make it to the conference schedule before he had the foot injury and missed his freshman year. So you can make a case and say he came literally right out of high school.
Right.
While Jalen Green was supposed to be the most prepared because he played in the G League. And that's what really makes it very interesting to me, is that we thought that he was the most prepared, and hasn't been on both ends of the floor. And then I'm not to pile on Killian, but Jalen Green's name is right by Killian Hayes and towards like the very bottom of the league overall in Raptor. And it's not the best position to be in.
Yeah. If you want to make the argument that Raptors right, like Killian Hayes is a great sort of example. But look, even coming into this season, I was a Killian Hayes. I just got to be honest. Like, I was a Killian Hayes fan coming into the draft. I thought he should have been a top 10 pick in the draft. While I had quabbles with Detroit taking him over Tyrese Halliburton, I didn't give them a terrible grade on draft night. So, I mean, he's obviously dramatically underperformed where I thought he would be in the draft. But there were so many questions after that first year, and then the sort of thinking came back, well, maybe it's all going to turn around in year 2, and it didn't for him. And so I think so much of this will also be on Jalen Green. What is he going to do? Is he going to get back in the gym? How is he going to work on his game? How is he going to improve? What is he going to learn and take from the season? Because the best in the NBA every year are adding, they're figuring out things. They're figuring out how to get done what they want to get done on the court. And, we'll see with Jalen Green. He seems like he's a competitive dude. He seems like he wants to be great. You saw that in the All-Star game where in the Rising Stars, man, I mean, that guy was gunning for MVP, like right from the get-go. And for a while, boy, he sure looked like it until he made a very Jalen Green-esque mistake at the end of the Rising Stars challenge, where he took up a contested 3 when his team didn't even need a 3 to win. Though in his defense, he says he was fouled by Sadiq Bey. Whatever you want to take from that. I'm not going to read too much into the Rising Challenge, but I agree that Jalen Green is going to be the most unique and interesting sort of player to watch on this list going forward and seeing where he goes. Okay, he's Rafael Barlowe. Rafael, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking top 25, under 25. Really looking forward to all your stuff. You're going to start diving into some international players. You're heading to Serbia.
Yeah, leave in a few hours. And I mean, we had little weather issues today here in Dallas, so that may impact it a little bit. But I'm looking forward to seeing some of the players. I think most of these guys are 2004 born, so they could be eligible for the draft next year. So hopefully I can uncover a hidden gem that we haven't really seen on NBA radars yet.
All right. Well, make sure you subscribe to NBABigBoard.com today. Rafael writing several times a week. I'm writing several times a week. We're writing about the 2022 NBA draft. Rafael sometimes even writing further down the road about the 2023 and beyond, as well as keeping track of all the rookies and sophomores. I feel like there's a lot of great content. We're publishing every day during the week right now, and some great video content from Rafael Barlowe as well. So make sure you go over and check out his Shade and Sharp breakdown if you want to see some video of the guy that a lot of NBA teams think is going to be somewhere in the 5 to 10 range if he ends up declaring for the draft. And then make sure you go over and check out the whole top 25, under 25. Make your comments. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'm open to anything. You've been listening to Chad Ford's NBA Big Board on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aloha.